Hi friends, we are going to read a story today called Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And it's a classic story, a classic tale. And we're going to do some of these every week for the next few weeks, learning about some of our classic stories. I want to show you this picture. This is a picture of a food called porridge. It might look a little bit like oatmeal. Does this food look hot or cold to you? Yes, how can you tell it's hot? It is hot. How can you tell? Yes, the steam or the smoke coming off it makes you realize that it's a hot food. And it's a hot, I would say a breakfast food, but maybe you can eat it whenever you want. But it's definitely a hot food. All right, so our story starts right here. And this here is Goldilocks. And she is heading towards the home of the three bears. And if you can see over here, the bears are leaving their house, okay? And she's heading to the house. So let's see what happens in this story. Let me just get my story. I'm going to read from down here so I can show you some pictures. All right. Let me get back to the right picture here. All right. Once upon a time, there were three bears who lived in a house in the forest. There was a great big papa bear, a middle-sized mama bear, and a tiny little baby bear. One morning, Papa Bear cooked some delicious porridge for the bears' breakfast. When it was ready, Papa Bear poured his own porridge into a great big bowl. Next, he poured Mama Bear's porridge into a middle-sized bowl. Finally, Papa Bear poured Baby Bear's porridge into a tiny little bowl. He placed each bowl on the kitchen table. Then, while they waited for the hot porridge to cool, the three bears went for a walk in the woods. What might happen while the bears are away? What do you think? Well, I think we looked at this picture. They might get a visitor. That very same morning, a golden-haired girl named Goldilocks had also gone for a walk in the woods. However, Goldilocks lost her way and came upon the bear's cottage. A cottage is a little house. Goldilocks saw an open window. She peeked inside the cottage. No one was there, but she spotted 3 bowls of porridge on the table. Goldilocks went inside. She was hungry and decided to eat the porridge. First, she used a great big spoon to taste the porridge in the great big bowl. Too hot, said Goldilocks. Next, Goldilocks used a middle-sized spoon to taste the porridge in the middle-sized bowl. Too cold, said Goldilocks. Finally, using the tiny little spoon, she tasted the porridge in the tiny little bowl. Hey friends, whose porridge was in that tiny little bowl? Do you remember? Yes, Baby Bear, you're right. Just right, said Goldilocks as she gobbled it up. Now Goldilocks looked around the room. She saw a great big chair, a middle-sized chair, and a little tiny chair. Let's get to that page. A great big chair, a middle-sized chair, and a little tiny chair. Goldilocks sits in Mama's and Papa's bear's chairs. I'm tired, said Goldilocks. So she sat down in the great big chair. Let's go back to this page. So she sat down in the great big chair. It was too hard. Next, Goldilocks sat down in the middle-sized chair, but it was too soft. Finally, she sat down in a little tiny chair. All right, now let's show you that chair. And just as she was thinking that the little tiny chair was just right, crash! The chair broke into pieces. Goldilocks fell to the floor. Goldilocks stood right up and was startled to see that the chair had broken into pieces. She was still tired, so she looked for another place to rest. She went upstairs and found 3 beds. There was the great big bed, a middle-sized bed, and a tiny little bed. Now let's see that page. Oh, there we go. First, Goldilocks tried to lie down in the big bed, but it was too smooth. Next, she tried the middle-sized bed, but it was too lumpy. Finally, she stretched out on the tiny bed. It was just right. Goldilocks fell asleep. All right. As Goldilocks slept, the three bears returned from their walk. They sat down to eat and knew right away that something was wrong. What was wrong with the porridge, friends? How did they know what was wrong with the porridge? Well, sure, she ate the little boys, the baby bears, and of course she tasted all the others, so they could tell that it was somebody had touched it. Papa Bear looked at his great big bowl. He cried out in a loud voice, "Someone has been eating my porridge." Mama Bear looked at her middle-sized bowl. She said in her middle-sized voice, "Someone has been eating my porridge." Then Baby Bear looked at his little tiny bowl. He squeaked in his little tiny voice, "Someone has been eating my porridge and has eaten it all up." So they could tell that somebody had been in the house. Then the three bears looked around. Papa Bear looked at his great big chair. He cried out in his great big voice, "Someone has been sitting in my chair." Mama looked at her middle-sized chair. She said in her middle-sized voice, "Someone has been sitting in my chair." Then Baby Bear looked at the broken pieces of his little tiny chair. He squeaked in his little tiny voice, "Someone has been sitting in my chair and has broken it all to pieces." All right. What is next? The three bears ran upstairs to the bedroom. Papa Bear looked at his great big bed. He said in his great big voice, "Someone has been sleeping in my bed." Mama Bear looked at her middle-sized bed. She said in her middle-sized voice, "Someone has been sleeping in my bed." Then Baby Bear looked at his little tiny bed. He squeaked in his little tiny voice, "Someone has been sleeping in my bed, and here she is." Who did they find? Yes, Goldilocks, who's in the bed. At that very moment, Goldilocks woke up. She saw the three bears standing over here. She was shocked and afraid. She couldn't believe what she saw. Look at those bears. They kind of look scary. So she scrambled out of the tiny bed and ran down the stairs out of the cottage. The three bears never saw Goldilocks again. The end. So that's a story that's been around for a very, very long time. So I wonder, friends, why did Goldilocks like Baby Bear's porridge? Do you remember? Because it was just right. Yeah, it wasn't too hot and it wasn't too cold. Good job. And why did Goldilocks like Baby Bear's bed? Because that was just right too. It wasn't too hard and it wasn't too soft. Yeah, so she just found it was just perfect for her. The things that were baby bears. All right, how do you think Goldilocks felt when she woke up and saw the bears standing there? Yeah, probably scared or afraid or scared or shocked maybe. Maybe a little sad because she touched their things and she shouldn't have. Yeah, so those are all kind of feelings she was having. All right, friends, thank you for listening. And when we're in school this week, we're going to do this story again. We're going to talk a little bit more about the story. All right, thank you. Bye.